again for joining us on Oshkosh today, and it's really amazing how much history is right here in Oshkosh, just down the street. Now we're at the historical Morgan House, right across from City Hall actually, with Julie Johnson, who's going to tell us a little bit more on the story of this beautiful old house here. So Julie, thanks for making some time for us out here today.
My pleasure.
So give us a little history lesson. What's the background of the Morgan House here?
Well, the Morgan House was built by John Rogers and Eleanor Morgan in the year 1884, and actually the Morgans had purchased this piece of property in the latter part of the 1850s. They came here in 1855, and they were actually living in that piece of property just right over yonder. There was a one-story home there. So Mrs. Morgan got to see her home being built every single day, and that must have been very exciting. So she goes from a one-story home to this beautiful, almost three-story Queen Anne style home in 1884. The Winnebago County Historical and Archaeological Society acquired the house in 1987. And we've been restoring the house ever since. So here we are about 30 years later, and through all these past years, the idea was just to kind of, focus in on the family and the history of the house and the people, and restore the home so that we could get it up and running for tours and people could come in and see it and whatnot. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The house basically is almost 100% renovated, restored, I should say, not necessarily to an original 1884 appearance of what John Rogers and his wife Eleanor would have had, but we did the best job that I think we could do in restoring it to something that was very period for its time.
Mm-hmm. And that was going to be my next question. You mentioned tours. How often are those available, and are they open to the public? Can anyone just walk up and take a tour, or what does
Well, yes and no. This summer we decided to have the house open free to the public every Saturday from 9 to noon, Memorial Day to Labor Day, Saturday. And otherwise it's by appointment. And I don't want to make that sound like it's kind of elitist. Anybody can call and get an appointment to come in and tour the Morgan House just about any time. It would be a matter of getting somebody to come in and give you the tour during the week or whatever. But we do that too. So
excellent. And where's the number? What number can you call, or where can you go to email or anything like that?
www.winnebagocountyyhistoricalsociety.com, and there's information also on the webpage, also phone numbers and all that too.
Wonderful. And you can actually find, all the other different sites around Oshkosh too that you can visit as well on the website.
Yes, we have a historical markers page on the webpage, and that's up and running with a lot of different sites in Winnebago County. Markers that the Winnebago County Historical Society put up through the many years, starting from about 1919 through to the present.
Wow.
So there's a lot of other things you can get in touch with and go visit and go see also.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the Morgan House. What are some of the things that give away where it's from or what year it's from, and the history of it?
Sure. Well, in 1884, when the house was built, by the way, the Morgans moved in just a couple of days before Christmas that year, and it was a very, very bitter cold winter, although I'm sure that it overshadowed everything from the excitement of moving into this beautiful home, coming from a one-story home to this beautiful Queen Anne style. But there was a lovely write-up in the paper about the homes that were built that season. The Morgan House was the premier home in that article, and there were several others. Bell and Cole architected and built this home, and there were also William Waters, another very well-known local architect, was also incorporated into the article with homes that he had built that season also. And they made it very clear in the article that for a long time Queen Anne style homes were all the rage in the East, and now everybody in Oshkosh in the West here wanted a Queen Anne style home. So it was purely because it was all the rage. It was the most fashionable thing to do. And in this period of the 1880s, Oshkosh was in a large building boom. Everyone had money to build. As a matter of fact, the paper says that even the poor were building more than the wealthy.
Really?
So for some reason, everybody all of a sudden in the 1880s, we had our last big Great Fire in 1875. By this period, in 1884, 83, 85, 1886, everybody had a little bit of money to build. And as a matter of fact, the newspaper says that other articles that all you could hear all over Oshkosh was banging and sawing in this 1880s period.
Really?
So it was a very big building boom. So buildings like this were highly fashionable, very exciting. Now we see the wealthy as well as the poor really starting to build and really have completely recovered over the last fire of 1875, which devastated all of downtown and a great deal of the east side.
It's so interesting to hear the history on, you just drive past this house every day, you don't
Right.
realize how much is behind it.
Right.
And you had said that it's almost fully renovated. It looks like you're doing some renovations on the outside right now.
Yep.
What's left in the big renovation project?
Well, nothing too much outside of painting the home, maybe in the next 10 years, a new roof on the house, that type of thing. We still have maybe one room upstairs that we would like to wallpaper and renovate. We have it nicely painted. It's all freshened up and in very good shape. It certainly isn't in an original state that it was in 1884. So that could be, one project that we could do. All it really needs is to be wallpapered and that type of thing. So, we pretty much have kind of arrived. There are
Excellent.
smaller projects like railings on the front porch, the original railings we'd like to replicate and that type of thing.
Really, and it's really interesting how you try and keep everything as close to the original as you
Or
can.
at least period.
Right, at least the period. And like you said, open for tours to anyone. Go on to the website, which is Winnebago County Historical Society. We got a couple seconds left. If you maybe want to give us a couple other little locations that we can visit out here in Oshkosh that might be surprising to some people.
Well, actually, this whole neighborhood here was inhabited by Morgan's relatives and family members. The house right in back here belonged to his daughter. If your father was wealthy in this period of time, guess what you got for a wedding gift? You got a house. So they tore down the one-story home that they originally had been living in, and Mr. Morgan built the house right next door here for his eldest daughter, Elnora Morgan, and her husband. And by the way, she was born on that property, and she also died on that property also.
Oh my gosh.
So the Mr. Morgan's nephew lived across the street in the house over there. His nephew lived 2 doors down. His in-laws lived across the street, and their children lived down the street. And Mr. Morgan's brother lived on the front of Jackson here in front of the safety building.
That's amazing.
Yep, his son
They didn't travel too far.
All
from
right,
home.
they did not. They did not. People in those days and for many, many, many years, they kept their piece of property, and that's where they stayed their whole entire lives. And sometimes their children took over the property, and they stayed there as well. So there wasn't all this moving around. They just didn't do that. People didn't do that for decades. It's really our generation that does that a lot. So
Yes. Well, I think I would take a wedding present as a house any day.
I
rather
would
than
as
moving
well.
away.
I don't care if it's even next door to my dad and mom.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much for bringing us out here, and make sure to check out the website for all the other cool locations that you can check out here in Oshkosh that have all this history behind them. So cool. So Julie, thanks again.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break here on Oshkosh Today, and we'll be right back with more on CATV2 right after this.